All right, back on LinkedIn with Cody Martin. Thank you, man, for being on this post, and I really appreciate talking to you. We've talked in the past, and what a lot of people might not understand with you is that you came from a unique agency that I've had the pleasure of working with before, but as a federal agent, the Postal Inspection Service. So
That's
tell
right.
us a little bit about your transition and what helped you in the transition, what hurt you in the transition. Let's just jump into it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, like you said, my federal career, it spanned about 12 years, and I was with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. And it's a unique federal agency in that it really focuses on any crime that has a nexus to the U.S. Postal Service. So that could be anything and everything when you get down to it, right? So, but what that agency did do for me, I was able to position myself in a way that when I transitioned out a few years ago, I was able to really niche down in what I was going to offer, to help myself stand out, right? So I think as a benefit, there's a lot of agencies out there. I mean, a lot of them that people haven't even heard of, right? Super small agencies, super big agencies, right? But what are you going to do to kind of make yourself stand out or to kind of avoid the competition when you have a lot of folks leaving, the federal agency career path and if they're hopping into private industry for themselves or somebody else, right? What are you going to do to say, hey, I've got something that makes me a little bit unique or to kind of stand out a little bit? So I think that did help me, right? So I worked primarily, I worked a lot of assignments, but one thing that kind of carried on throughout all those years was working dangerous mail, bombs and biologicals and chemicals and that type of response and investigations. So I used that as a tool to transition into the private sector, right? So it allowed me to have something that's kind of unique apart from all of my peers and colleagues, and I was able to market that, and that's kind of the angle I took making the transition. Not to say that it was easy, I had the idea, there were some things I could have done better to make the transition a little bit smoother, but that was my thought, and that's what I would kind of recommend to folks, right? Is to niche down, focus in on one thing, and then kind of use that as a springboard when you're coming out of federal service.
So, like you said, Postal Inspection Service
Yeah.
has a very unique view, and not a lot of people knew or even know that the organization exists.
Yeah.
How did you get that word out, or did people, do you just say, yeah, I'm a former federal agent, and this is the kind of stuff that I can do
Sure.
for you, or did you have to like market yourself and get out there and like push the agenda, and because you're passionate. I
Unfortunately,
mean,
yeah.
we're going to talk about this more, but you're passionate about dangerous mail. Like
I,
you're a subject matter expert.
Well, I think that so I had the idea of what I wanted to focus on, but I didn't necessarily take the proper steps to make that transition as easy as it would have been, right? So it's funny you mentioned the marketing part of it, and I think that is huge, especially if you want to work for yourself. In my case, as a consultant, I'm just another face in the sea of everyone out there. How does somebody recognize me? How do they vet who I am? How do I get across, what I can offer to them? So the marketing component of it is huge. And, it was slow growth for me in that area because I almost did have the mindset you mentioned, right? It's like, hey, here I am. Why don't you just go ahead and where do we sign up? And that was a big mistake. I think that the biggest thing, a lot of federal agents, whether it's at the advice of their agency or due to the sensitive nature of the work they're doing, you don't really have much of a presence outside of your agency. Nobody knows who you are. So for me, coming out of federal service, it was I didn't have a LinkedIn profile. I had zero connections. I hadn't made any effort to nurture those relationships outside of my agency. So for me, it's an easy one, right? If you're allowed to and capable to start building a network, right, and start letting people know outside of your circle what you do, what you can do, and then using that as a tool to transition. For me, again, it was slow. I'm like, hey, I can put up a website, I can do some things like that, and here the work will come in. Boy, that was a mistake, right? So I found success in LinkedIn. That's where I found success. And early on, fortunately nowadays it's not one of those things where I market it that much. A lot of word of mouth, and I'm fortunate for that. But early on, it was, to be honest, and it's almost writing blog posts. getting your opinion out there. So if you're a subject matter expert in something, then you need to get that out to the people who may be interested in it, right? And you need to do that. You need to scale it in the best way that you can. So for me, it was, I would write things, I would put them on my website, but I would also go to LinkedIn and share that same information, right? And if there is someone looking for it, especially, in professional realm, they spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. And that's a good place to try to get your opinion out there. And it's not one of those things where, I say, hey, if you know what you're talking about, you stand firm in that opinion, then you're just sharing that with folks, right? And you're offering free advice. And I would say, give away what you have for free, right? I'll tell people everything that I know. And I think that is one of those things, people are apprehensive to do that because they think, well, what are they going to pay me for? Well, you can tell them, right? I can read a book on how to perform brain surgery, but I'm still going to hire someone to do it. So, share what you know and put that out there. And if people find value in it, then they're going to want to at least have a discussion, or they're wanting to interact. And I think that's super valuable when it comes down to trying to position yourself in a way that shows people you have some value to offer.
That's a great point. I think communication is really important on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a huge resource. We have so many of our law enforcement partners that want to communicate, but they can't yet maybe talk about what their expertise is or what their feelings are. Yeah. Should they be commenting on kind of like current events and current news stories? Is that maybe a different way that they could share what's going on without sharing too much about investigations that they're doing or some of the things that they've seen?
100%, right? I would always, they're in a role for an agency that you don't want to compromise that in any way, right? Looking forward to the next thing. So what you can do are some things like that. And I think it provides, again, it's if you're providing value on these things, right? You're offering insight, you're offering different perspective, you're doing it in a way that comes across as, you don't want to come in like a know-it-all, right? And then come across real pompous. But if you're coming in, hey, you're just adding value, you're engaging in a conversation, I think it's an excellent way. You're going to build your network. You're also going to just, people are going to see that, right? They always appreciate that. So I think it's an excellent tool.
Awesome. So we'll pause here, but when we come back, let's talk about some more about what you did after your transition, what that looks like, and how you're building your network. So stay tuned on LinkedIn. We're going to be talking with you some more about this. I really appreciate you being on here. And to the audience at home, make sure you're liking and sharing this with your partners. Comment down below. Both Cody and I will communicate with you. And if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. But stay tuned for more.